Us. Hi everybody, Sensei Ross here. Today I'm going to be talking about the strikes, the various strikes that we do at Bukido. Good place to start with strikes is to have a look at some of those Japanese names. We use those names in class a lot. You'll hear us talking about Jodan Sukis or Furiuchis. So uchi is the Japanese word for strike. Suki is the Japanese word for punch. So we're talking about hand strikes primarily today. So I'm just going to go through the various strikes, whether they be fist strikes, open hand techniques, elbow techniques. I'll just run through them and give you a little bit of an explanation about them and just reinforce those Japanese names. But go to the book that you get when you join Bukido, and there's a glossary of terms in there that you can see what the names of these strikes are, the various strikes in Japanese. So we're going to start off with the basic ones. So when we do strikes, we're always in that fighting stance, but we're going to do a head strike to start with. So head strike is called a Jodan Suki, and we're punching with those front two knuckles. So you'll see in our katas there's various explanations of the strikes that we do in our kata. When we're punching, we're talking about hitting with those front two knuckles, which means our wrist is slightly bent to ensure that those two knuckles are the impact zone on whatever we're trying to hit. So when you're doing these techniques, make sure you're bending that wrist slightly, and you're using those front two knuckles. They're like a gun sight. So if you've got a target in front of you, you basically want to use that as what you're aiming at. So straight into your target, slightly bent, Jodan Suki, off the right, off the left. So practice those. Chudan Suki is a midsection strike. So Chudan obviously is into that midsection range. So we're punching to the solar plexus. When we're throwing strikes, particularly when we're doing it for practice, we make sure that we have our fist back up here, nice and high. The reason we do that is when we throw it for the from here to there, it's the shortest distance between our target and where we're starting it from. So if you start from here, longer distance to your target. So that's why we come up as high as we can when we throw a strike. We're back here, we come down to there. It's a nice short strike, but we've got some power because we're coming as far back as we can and generating power. When we're throwing strikes, we're using our body as well. We're not just using our arms to throw a punch, we're using our shoulders, we're using our hips, we're getting power out of the ground. So if we're throwing off our back leg, we're pushing with our leg, pushing and getting some power. So that's right, that's one way you can see how power is generated from the ground. Our foot's cocked, we push off the ground, we rotate our hips, we throw a strike. So, Jodan Suki, head strike, Chudan Suki, midsection strike, Gaidan Suki, that's a low strike. So we're aiming for the top of the bladder pretty much. So that's a deep punch. So it's when we're in close, that's when we're using that strike. So a lot of those early katas that we do, you're seeing those techniques being used, those three basic punching strikes. There's other strikes that we use our fists for. Furiuchi, so that's a punch that comes around, we're basically hitting to the jaw, chin, side of the head. But we're using those front two knuckles, so when we're trying to impact, they're the things that are hitting first, alright? So we don't roll it over that way, we don't hit like that. We're coming up, that's nice and vertical. So, and we hit through our target. So with a Furiuchi, through our target. Titsui, that's a hammer fist. So that's coming down to the bridge of the nose. So we're hitting with that part of our fist. And we can do a hammer fist out like that, out to the side. To the groin, hammer fist can be used in a variety of ways. But that one is called a Titsui. So we're going straight out to the bridge of the nose. Tate Suki, so this used to be called a Sairuchi in the early days. Shidoshi changed this because tate means vertical or stand up. So we're hitting with a vertical fist, so that's why it's been called a tate Suki. Again, we're hitting with those front two knuckles, so we've got to roll our wrist over a little bit so that those two knuckles is what hits first. So tate Suki, it's straight through. We're basically aiming to get through the hands with that strike, so our fist is a little bit skinnier and you can get through potentially a gap in the hands. Chisel fist. So chisel fist, this is where we do use some different knuckles. We're using those knuckles there. What we're trying to do with this is bounce it up into the windpipe. So if we use a chisel fist, we aim for the chest, hits the windpipe, and it's not potentially as dangerous as a normal punch to the face, whereas you get hit in the windpipe, not going to die from it, but it can definitely slow your opponent down. So that chisel fist looks like that. We can also do an underhand chisel fist if we want to as well. So we just change the angle and go straight for whatever our target is. So overhand chisel fist, underhand chisel fist. We've also got a Suki, so this is an uppercut. Again, we're trying to hit with those front two knuckles. Depends on what we're aiming at. So if we're aiming for the chin, we're coming up nice and high. If we're aiming for a stomach strike, the angle changes a little bit. But that's the nature of a Suki or an uppercut. We've got our back fists, so we call these irokens. So iroken is hitting with the back of our fist, and we can do these out to the front, we can do these out to the side, we can do these to the back. So you've got someone standing next to you, we call that a yoko uroken. So yoko means side, shiro is back, so shiro empire, iroken strike. So irokens you'll see in some of our katas, and they're very fast punch. So if you've done a soto block, quickest way to come back is an iroken to the face. You block a strike and then flick that iroken strike out. Useful punch. We've got a koken strike, which you'll see in our 4th senior kata. That's the shape of the koken, and what we're doing is we're hitting with that part of our fist. By putting our fingers together, we tighten it up, and all of a sudden it becomes very strong. And if you get hit by that at pace, it can hurt. So that's an iroken strike. It comes from that white crane kung fu style. I've also got the palm of our hand that we can use to strike with. So we call these palm heels. And with the palm heel, we're hitting with that part of our hand. Fingers are back. We can do it from that position straight out in front. In our 5th kata, we do that palm heel comes up like that. So our hand it's like an uppercut. We hit with that palm of our hand, the heel of our palm. So you can do some damage with a palm heel, and you don't hurt yourself because you're hitting with the soft part of your hand. So benefit for you. You can also use that as it's like a hook. So we call that a mawashi palm heel. So you know the mawashi kick, roundhouse kick. Well, this is a mawashi palm heel. It comes around from the side, and you can really stun somebody if you cup your hand and give them that big slap. Can disorientate them and not going to really hurt them, but can really put them on the back foot. So mawashi palm heel looks like that. Okay, we've got our shudo techniques, so our open hand techniques, so old karate chops. So shudo, it's emulating what happens with a sword. Okay, so it's a sword technique, but instead we're coming through with an open hand. We've got our fingers nice and tight together, so it's one unit. You don't want them separated because it's weaker, and you can damage your hand as well if it's not nice and tight. So you've got everything nice and tight. And when we see this being practiced, we want to see you coming through the target. All right, so we don't stop here. We come through the target. So power is coming through, and we're trying to hit. we're aiming for the side of the neck. That's what we're trying to get power into. So we use our hips again, power off the back foot, and get some drive through that Bukido technique. So that's technique 1. Technique 2 is off the other shoulder. So this is it's the reverse. We basically come across from the opposite shoulder and we come through our target. So technique 2, same thing. Hands, fingers are nice and tight together, one unit. It's a Bukido technique 2. Technique 3. We're going to try. We're coming up to the again to the windpipe here. It's a short, sharp flick. So we're coming straight ahead, hitting with that part of our hand, and we basically recoil as we hit it. So it's a stunning strike. Bukido technique 3. There's also a knife hand strike that we do to the groin. So we're hitting with the other side of our hand with this one. We're coming up between the legs. So the shape of that is obviously nice and skinny, so we can get up through, groin strike, and again put our opponent on the back foot with a knife hand strike. Again, using that side of our palm, we do a haito. So it's like a hook, and we just come through. Again, hands, fingers are together. We're hitting with that part of our fist, so tuck your thumb in, and you come through the target. So that's an overhand Bukido, really. Haito, it's called. There's the finger strikes as well. So you can do double fingers, you can do single fingers to the eyes primarily. That's what you're aiming at. So if you're in a dangerous situation, a strike to the eye is probably warranted if someone's really trying to hurt you. Finger straight to the eye. So eyes, groins, got to put them out of action as quickly as possible, and there's some key areas that you can go to without actually hurting yourself. So just a finger to the eye, double fingers to the eyes. It's called a nippon strike. You can also use your knuckles as well. You can use your knuckles in that situation. Dangerous strike. You wouldn't want to hit someone in the temple with that. Can do some real damage, but knuckles, single knuckle strikes, I think they're also called ippon strikes as well. You can use those and to get you out of trouble. Alright, so that's generally all the hand techniques we've got. Elbow, obviously another strong weapon that we can use. We practice a lot of these strikes in class, and there's a variety of ways you can use your elbow. So you can throw it like a hook. So it's basically when you're in close, you use your elbow because you don't need that full extended arm. You just use an elbow. You're in tight, but you can generate a lot of power. And again, you're using your hips, shoulder, and you come around and throw an empire strike. So to practice that, you have your hand on the opposite side of your head. Throw that empire strike. Hips are turning, shoulders turning. You get some good power. You can do an uppercut. So if you're in close, uppercut to the chin. Comes up straight, very short, sharp strike. It's an uppercut empire strike. You can do the 12 to 6 o'clock one. So 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We do that in our second senior kata. So we're coming down from high, potentially into the back of the head. If they've collapsed in front of you a little bit, you can drive them down into the ground, or if they're on the ground, you can come down and do that as well. You can do a yoko empire, so out to the side. We generally do this, you'll see this in the katas. Protect our ribs. Okay, so elbow out to the side, protect your ribs. We can do it backwards as well. So when we're doing it backwards, we use our other hand to drive. Someone might be grabbing us from behind. So grab your hand, drive, move your hips out of the road, hitting them in the solar plexus. So that's an Ashiro empire. So Ashiro means back, Ashiro empire. You can also do these straight ahead. So if you're coming forward, you can drive with an elbow straight ahead. It's a little bit more awkward, but that's something you can practice as well. So there's a variety of strikes that
we use in Bukido and some of the Japanese terminology that go with those strikes. So try and learn those, practice them, and you will improve. This